Welcome to episode 501 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing German writer-director Maximilian Erlenwein. He's on today to talk about his new film, The Dive. It's an underwater thriller where two sisters go scuba diving and one gets stuck at the bottom of the sea with limited oxygen. We talk through his career a little bit. He started in Germany and worked his way up there. So we talk a little bit about how the German film industry works. And then his latest project, The Dive, this is a project that he got involved with where there was already a screenplay that had been produced in another language. So he adapted that screenplay into an English language screenplay and then ultimately film. So we talk through that process a bit as well. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts. And then just look for episode number 501. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Maximilian Erlenwein. Here is the interview. Welcome, Maximilian, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
All right, so yeah, I grew up in a little town in Germany, and I loved movies and films since I was a kid. But I never thought that I could make this. I never thought that this was a career opportunity for me. And even in my 20s, I thought, wow, that what you had to do to be accepted in film school was so difficult, and it seemed like only the top artists, are able to do this. And then, I just started to do internships and, started as a camera assistant for lousy TV and bad documentaries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew into it. And then, then I applied to film school and I was lucky that they accepted me. And then, I did my first feature film and my second feature film. And then there was like a kind of a valley after that because I tried to make things happen. And I was on a few projects, which didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Financed, which was hard, I have to say. And then, but I did a lot of commercials during that time, and that kept me over water.
Gotcha. So maybe we can just dive in a little bit on some of the things you said. So this was before you went to film school. Were you out of high school? So you're in your early 20s and you start getting these jobs working on these bad documentaries, bad television. Maybe you can talk about that. It sounds like while maybe these were not great projects in their finished form, it was a good learning place for you. Maybe you can just talk quickly about that. How did you find those sorts of opportunities? How did you get yourself onto those sets, even just doing assistant camera work? Did you have some experience in high school? Did you do a couple of student films or something? But just give a couple of tips and maybe give your experience on how you actually got some of these early jobs.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't have any experience in high school. I just loved films and I had no idea. And in the beginning, first I went to a university and started like a film study. Yeah, but it wasn't my thing because it was not about how to make films, how to make this emotions that I felt, where to put the camera. It was all about, interpretation. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that's not what I want. That's not the real thing. Those guys who are teaching, they've never been on set. They don't know anything, about filmmaking. And then, as I said, I did these internships and the camera assistant stuff but it was like TV, not camera assistant for film, not 35 millimeters or something, just like call it EB. I don't know if it's the same, like electronic broadcast. They are just like news stuff and, sex and crime stories for TV. But I did learn to, because I had a very good cameraman who who taught me, and I learned to frame stuff, and I learned to make, to create images with less effort, with less budget, and just on the fly, fast. And I think it helped me when I got into film school to have this experience. And I have to say, through all the sex and crime stuff, I got into touch with really crazy people. I don't know how many murderers I interviewed, and and how many, I don't know. And I was like, I traveled a lot in Europe, to Romania and to Africa, and did like really crazy stuff, which was not like journalistically well done, which I had really problems with. It was always a sensational stuff, exploiting almost.
Gotcha.
And I had like problems with it, and I was really happy when I then got to film school.
So then talk about that transition. How did you get to that first feature film that you got to write and direct? Did you self-fund it? Had you done a bunch of shorts? Did you have a script you passed around to producers, raised funding in sort of a traditional way? But just take us through that first feature film. How did you get that first feature film off the ground?
Well, I did a few short films before my feature who were quite successful on festivals. I mean, not super successful, but it was all right. And, I did a 30 minutes film before, because I thought, okay, the 30 minutes film is like a better, showcase that I can do a quite longer format. It was a classic narrative, so it was not like really didn't feel so much like a short film, but a promise for something in a longer format. And then, in Germany, the film schools are very well connected to the German TV, and we have we had or still have like the ZDF, that is the second big broadcast in Germany, and you have it's called das kleine Fernsehspiel. It's a tiny slot, where you get like, I don't know, 600,000 euros when you're lucky to make your first film, or 800,000, and and I was lucky enough to get this opportunity, so I made my first feature. That actually was that in the time, it was like 2000. I don't know, 5 or 4. I'm very bad with everything that's past.
Okay, well, that's a great story. Maybe you can just give us a couple tips. I mean, in the United States, and I interview European filmmakers often, and they talk about some of these government grants and just supporting the arts more. And we don't really have that in the United States, so it's not something that I know anything about. But definitely for the European listeners, maybe you can talk through that process. How do you get to that point where you get accepted? What I always sort of hear from people, especially the people that don't get accepted, is they always have this sort of attitude that it's very political, it's who you know and stuff, but maybe your experience is different. How did you actually get this grant to go make this feature? Was it based on your short films? Was there some bit of knowing the right people? Was it the film school? Was it the letter your professor wrote? Maybe you can give us a little insight into that.
I mean, of course, it's always about knowing the right people, right? I mean, in every industry, it's always like that. And and there was this one guy from the television called Luca Schmidt, one of the, I don't know, redacteur, I don't know the English term for it, like the broadcast guy, and he liked my short film, and I pitched the idea for my feature film to him, and then it took some time, and of course you have to be lucky in a way, to get the funding, the funding, but then there's not that financial pressure on it. You can it's not like, I guess, not like in the US where it's real money that is invested and the film has to, get the money back in a way. In Germany, there's a lot of, cultural funding, so to say, to just, also for younger filmmakers and younger artists. And that, of course, helped. I mean, not everything in that system is good. I mean, you have to, there are a lot of, counter arguments how this affects the whole industry also, because I don't want to get into this too much, but it helped me a lot, I have to say, and I'm very thankful for that system.
Gotcha. So let's dig into your latest feature film, The Dive. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or log line. What is this new film all about?
It's about two sisters going for a dive, and they have an accident, and one is stuck underwater, and the other one has to do everything possible to bring oxygen down and to rescue her sister.
And so where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis for this story?
So it's based on a Swedish film called Breaking Surface. So it's an adaptation. And the company who had the remake rights approached me with a screenplay. And for me, as a I'm just a normal German director. And for me, the opportunity to do an English language film is, of course, an opportunity you're getting curious about. And then it was about diving, and I did a lot of diving when I was younger, and I thought, wow, this is something I have to do. I mean, the opportunity to show this underwater world and to have to create an immersive experience for the big screen underwater seemed like an opportunity I couldn't miss. I could not decline this. I had to do it. And that was like bringing me over the step, because it's a remake. And I of course, it's not super attractive to do a remake of an existing film who already is great and worked. But this I couldn't put down. And I started like being creative with a screenplay and came up with my own ideas. And I thought, okay, this definitely I can do this.
So on IMDb, it's listed as Joachim Hedén. Is that he's the fellow who wrote the Swedish version, and that's what these producers came to you with?
Exactly. He's a writer and director of Breaking Surface.
Gotcha. So then what about what was your background in scuba diving? Was that something that these producers knew, or was it just sort of a coincidence that you also had this background with scuba?
Oh, no, it was actually a coincidence. They approached me because of my previous films and series.
But they didn't know necessarily that you had scuba experience too.
Oh, they didn't know. They were, when I told it, of course, immediately I told them, and I thought actually that they knew and that they approached me because of this, but they didn't.
Gotcha.
And they were super excited, of course. And like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
How did you meet these producers? How did you meet these producers that you're even in a position for them to approach you with this?
Well, I didn't know them before, because I heard of them. It's Augenschein. It's a company called Augenschein from Cologne, and they are specialized in English language films produced with German money, so to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's a really well working business problem, because business model, because they are really clever guys. So they take German money. Doing an English language film with also like financing from the English and US distributors. But then the risk for the partners in US and UK is much less because of the German film funding, which is not, if you lose the money, it's not real money, so to say. It's fun. So yeah, and I think this works. They are very successful with it.
Gotcha. So how did you approach the changes? So they came with a screenplay. Was it even written in English or German that you could read it? Do you have to get it translated? But maybe talk through some of that steps. What were some of the changes you made? What was the condition of the screenplay when you got it? What were some of the changes you made, and why did you make those changes?
Yeah, the screenplay was already in English, because when they did it initially, the first Breaking Surface, the plan was already to do it in English, but then they didn't get the financing. And they decided, or Joachim decided to do it as a Swedish film. So the idea was already there before. So there was an English screenplay, and it was basically the shooting script of Breaking Surface. So I read it before I watched the film, and it was really solid. It was really a page turner. And then I watched the original the film, and I thought, wow, it's a great film. But I thought, okay, I could bring something to the table also, like as a diver, to make something different out of it. And I changed the characters. That was my first step. And the idea was like Breaking Surface is only shot in a tank. And I thought, okay, if I could do this for real in the ocean, that would be something, I would really like to do, to give it a bigger scale and, to convey this fascination for the ocean that I have. And yeah, and then it was just like being creative with the screenplay and seeing what I came up to, and then I was very, very focused on the emotional journey between the two sisters and how they could get together again through the traumatic experiences.
Now, when you're working with these producers, and again, it sounds like you didn't have a prior relationship with them necessarily. So they come to you with this project, they sort of tell you about it. You say, yeah, I'd be interested in this. And then do you pitch your ideas for the screenplay? And is that part of your sort of interview process? Like they had sent this out to a handful of different writer directors and wanted to get your take. And I'm sort of asking is, when you're going in with your pitch to these producers about how you're going to change this screenplay, is that part of the interview process, or have they already hired you and you're basically just doing the work now trying to get this thing ready for production?
No, they already hired me. I did not. I mean, maybe in the first calls I had with them, I came up with my approach, and maybe they could have also like said, "No, we don't want to do this." But my impression was that they wanted to do it with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they approached other directors who put it down, who declined it, who didn't want to do it before. But when they approached me, I had the feeling they wanted to do it with me, and it was pretty clear that we go this road now together.
Gotcha.
And then still working together with them. They're very, they are very good in developing stories, and we did it together also. Yeah.
Gotcha. And what is your approach to something like this in terms of screenplay structure? And I'm curious, did the screenplay come pretty well structured? But there's the Blake Snyder, Sid Field. They have their sort of paradigms, very rigid paradigms for structure. How do you approach something like this, especially a genre film like this? How do you approach structure? How do the act breaks, the plot points, and that sort of stuff?
Well, the original screenplay already had a pretty solid structure, like the pure bone, the skeleton of the survival thriller, and all the little things they do, was already pretty solid. But I wasn't like, I thought I could do something with the end, and I could do something with the characters. And when I do screenwriting, I read it all, and I read Sid Fields and Robert McKee and I have tons of books. But it's not that I'm so aware of it anymore. It's somehow in my back head, and I think I have a good intuition, about the rhythm and the pace and the twists and the acts and the structure of a screenplay. But I myself am more interested in films who are breaking the laws of those Sid Field laws. And I think nowadays, if you are too limited by those rules, I don't know, it's not that interesting for me anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what have you, I like to end the interviews just by asking the guest if there's anything they've seen recently that they thought was really great. Is there anything you've been watching recently you can recommend to our mostly screenwriting audience? Netflix, HBO, Hulu, anything out there that you're watching?
Oh yeah, there's this free dive documentary on Netflix. I don't know, it's a few weeks, it's called, what is it called? The Last Breath or something. It's about this real free diving couple. This world-class free diving a woman again, and she falls in love with a safety diver. I don't know. I think it's The Last Breath or something like this, but that really, that was so good.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good recommendation. I'll have to check that out. So how can people see the dive? What is the release schedule going to be like for the dive?
Well, I'm a little bit in a bubble here right now because I'm in Prague preparing the new series I do. And there is a US release, but to be honest, I have no idea how big it is. And I think it's coming out now on Friday, 25th.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So anywhere videos are available on demand, I'm sure you guys will be getting there.
Yeah.
And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Anything you're comfortable sharing, I will put in the show notes so people can click over. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of those types of accounts.
Well, to be honest, I'm not really a social media guy.
So I can't say I blame you.
No, my Instagram account is just for fun, just for me. I don't promote anything. I mean, I'm doing now a second season of The Empress for Netflix. That's what I'm doing now till February. The shooting is till February, and then the post-production.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, we'll get your IMDb link in there. People can definitely follow along and just kind of see what you're up to. So I really appreciate you coming and talking with me today. Good luck with this film and good luck with your future projects as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk to you later. Bye. SYS's From Concept to Completion Screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Tom and Charles Gard. They are writer-directors from the UK, and they're on next week to talk about their new film called Deadshot, which is a political thriller that takes place in 1970s London. We talk about this film as well as their careers and how they got their start. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.